later in the program as we continue. Meantime, let me ask if we can, do we have an agenda before this at all, just to see the full agenda for the meeting?
The agenda for the meeting.
Yeah, just so all of us and the public can see it, if that's the case. In the meantime, what I'd like is to go around the room and have each person just say their name and their organization as an introduction in case we have some community members joining us. So I can see only so many people in Hollywood Squares. So let me start with, okay, let's start with Christine.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Chris Myskowski. I'm a professor in the School of Nursing at the University of California, San Francisco. Very pleased to be here.
Thanks. Elena?
Hi, everyone. Elena Flowers, Associate Professor in the School of Nursing at UCSF as well, and also looking forward to joining this group.
Larry?
Yeah, Larry Goldstein, Distinguished Professor Emeritus at UC San Diego in a couple of different departments, and Scientific Director Emeritus at the Sanford Consortium for Regenerative Medicine. I think I'm appointed as an at-large member for San Diego.
Okay. George?
Hi, I'm George Blumenthal. I'm the Chancellor Emeritus of the University of California at Santa Cruz.
Right. Did I miss any communications board members?
I'm here.
Oh, David, I'm sorry. You were on the tip of my tongue. Go ahead.
I'm David Higgins. I'm in San Diego, and I'm a patient advocate member of the board.
Linda, welcome.
Hi. This is Linda Malkus. I'm the Dean of Translational Science of the City of Hope, and I love being on this board.
Great, good. Anybody else from the board? Or otherwise, we'll continue with our team, our CIRM team.
Okay, we're good. My name is Corinne Temple Perry. I'm the Senior Director of Marketing Communications here at CIRM.
I'm Christina Smith. I'm social media and content specialist at CIRM.
My name is Esteban Cortez, Director of Marketing Communications at CIRM.
Hi everyone again. I'm Katie Sharifi, the Communications Team Coordinator.
My name is Aditi. I'm the Community Outreach Manager.
Douglas Guillen, Project Manager, CIRM.
Lana Morales, Senior Executive Assistant to Board Governance.
Claudette Mandak, Associate Director, Board Governance.
And Scott Tosher, Senior Director of Board Governance.
So Vito, go for it.
Thanks. Hi, Vito Imbasciani. I'm the relatively new chair of the board of the ICOC. Welcome all.
Great. So am I looking at the agenda as we're going to proceed with you, Corinne?
Yes, that sounds good. Do we roll call? Okay, we'll do roll call, then we'll get into things.
Okay. All right. Kim Barrett, George Blumenthal. Please say, oh, you're on
Here.
Okay. Maria Bonneville.
Present.
Leandra Clark Harvey. Isabel Duron.
Here.
Elena Flowers.
Present.
Larry Goldstein.
Here.
David Higgins.
Present.
Vito Imbasciani.
Here.
Linda Malkus.
Here.
Chris Myskowski.
Present.
Lauren Miller-Rogan.
Here.
Okay, we have Corinne. Isabel, back to you.
I guess I'm just going to toss it right over to Corinne to start.
Okay, that sounds. Happy holidays. Welcome to the Communications Subcommittee meeting. I'm very happy to be here today to share updates from our team, as well as to provide a preview of upcoming initiatives. So right now we're looking at the agenda slide. And we already started with team introductions, but we can give another round of introductions to our team once again. Then I'd like to preview a few of our key strategies in our updated communications plan. And then I'd like to share our outreach calendar should you want to participate in some of the upcoming events. Sorry. All right, so we kind of jumped the gun here. We already introduced our team. But again, my name is Corinne Temple-Perry. I'm the Senior Director of Marketing Communications here at CIRM. I've been here for about 7.5 months, and I've had the pleasure of leading this amazing team. And we'll just quickly go through and just say our names once more, but I want to give Christina an opportunity to introduce herself since she's the newest member of our team.
Hi, Christina Smith, Social Media and Content Specialist. I've been with CIRM for a little over a month now. And I have a 7-year background in digital marketing, primarily in nonprofit, startup, and government sectors. And I have a Master's of Comms from University of Washington.
Thank you, Christina.
Thanks, Christina. And my name is Esteban Cortez. I'm the Director of Marketing Communications at CIRM, and I've been with the team for just a little over 2 years. I actually just hit my 2-year anniversary in November. So thank you all for being here today.
Katie Sharifi, I'm the Communications Team Coordinator. I've been here for a couple of years, but unofficially with CIRM for probably 12.
You're the veteran of our team.
And Aditi, Community Outreach Manager, and I've been here for going on 4 months.
Great. Wonderful. All right, next slide. All right, so the last time we met, we provided a pretty robust update of our different activities and initiatives and what we've kind of been up to. And now I'd really like to talk about where we're going as outlined in our communications plan. So our communications plan is really a blueprint for communicating how our efforts align to our strategic pillars of advancing world-class science, delivering real-world solutions, and providing opportunity for all. And so in this plan, we've included a couple of parts. We have our overall communications plan, we have our outreach plan, and we have our social media insights report. And next slide, perfect. And so the plan really aims to achieve 3 primary objectives. One, we really want to provide robust integrated communication support for all CIRM programs and initiatives. And that means really providing coordinated support to ensure a cohesive and impactful narrative. 2, we want to position CIRM as a trusted authority. So we want to be known as the foremost and reliable source of information. We want to enhance the organization's credibility by disseminating accurate, accessible, and up-to-date content. And our 3rd objective for this plan is really to forge collaborative partnerships for amplified impact, to communicate CIRM's mission, right? So we really want to strengthen alliances to broaden our reach and to enhance the resonance of our message. And so as we were crafting this communications plan, we really wanted to take a more integrated and proactive approach to our communications. This helps us plan out, our resources, our time. It ensures that our creative is better, and so that we can also reach stakeholders in more meaningful ways. And next slide. All right, so with any good plan, we can't do it all at once. So we really broke up our communication plan and we had sort of 3 phases in mind. And you'll see here we have phase 1, 2, and 3. Right now for the first phase, which is between Q1 and Q2, this is the current phase that we're in right now. And this is all about improving our channels and our brand. So in addition to the highlights I'm going to share in a few slides, we've been really actively optimizing and cleaning up our channels. We've been streamlining our internal workflow so that we can work better. We've developed and refined messaging, which was previewed in our annual report, which you all read. And we're soon going to roll out brand and style guidelines. And these are just guides on how to write consistently and how to use our brand consistently. We've also undergone an email cleanup and further segmented our lists. And we're actively developing a network of communication partners. So again, we can foster that improved collaboration for greater impact. So as we get into the next phase, right, so this is going to be next quarter and taking us into Q4, it's really all about building momentum. So we want to build upon the important work that we've been doing the last couple of months. We want to build more traction, especially as we launch more proactive communication strategies. We're undertaking a website refresh, which we're going to talk about in a few slides. We're also going to develop more core educational materials to support with launching our outreach campaigns, which Aditi is going to preview. And we plan to launch key strategies to support our larger strategic plan, and I'm going to go into detail about that in a minute. So when we're looking at this third phase, which is really all about expanding reach, this is going to take us into fiscal year 2024. We really want to continue to drive these integrated campaigns, right? As we launch more initiatives, really in unison as the Community Care Centers of Excellence and PSP programs start to go underway. That also means exploring a digital app potentially with greater patient connectivity, and also planning out future investments in media relations and internal communications. And then next slide. So I'm gonna turn it over to Katie, who's gonna talk a little bit about our web refresh project.
Thank you, Corinne. So I'm just going to expand a bit on our website refresh. The website remediation has been a long-term project involving several teams within CIRM. And over the past 2 years, we've actually accomplished two really big tasks. The first one, we moved our web host from one to another, making it just easier for us to make all these website edits that we're constantly making. We're always updating the website to make sure that we're providing the most accurate information to the public. And second, and even more impressive, we took every single piece of content within the website, and there were thousands, every form, every document, annual reports, all of that. And we remediated it according to the ADA standards. And as a state agency, CIRM is required to conform to level AA standards of the web content accessibility guidelines. And according to the last audit that we ran back in 2001, there were 579 failures noted. So some of these failures were actually the documents that we ended up remediating. So I myself ran an informal audit last week just to kind of see where we are. And it looks like we're 100% compliant when it comes to all the documents that remediated, which is really, really great. However, there is a lot of structural inaccessibility on the website, such as user journey issues, error messages, navigation issues, and that's sort of what this next phase is going to be all about, which is to refresh the website, to move things around, just make it a lot more visually pleasing and also ADA compliant. And over the years, I'm sure you can all see, we've added so much great new information to the website. It's a great resource for many people. It's just that it's very hard to navigate through and find that information. Especially for making it ADA compliant, we would really like people who use assistive technologies like screen readers or voice dictation software to be able to not only get to this information, but to be able to actually have their assistive technology read it for them. And like I said, we are required to abide by the ADA law, and part of this refresh, it's a labor of love, and we also just want to make sure that the great content that we're putting out there is very easy to access and to understand for the public.
Thank you, Katie. And this one.
Thanks, Katie. So along with some of those website updates that Katie just mentioned, we did also want to take this as an opportunity to look at the CIRM logo and really explore some of those opportunities in how we can improve the accessibility of our brand as well. So to start, we have received some feedback that our logo can be a little bit difficult to read for people with visual impairments. So we made some subtle changes to the lettering, the type that you see there, also added some spacing in between the letters to improve the readability. And also really wanted to take this as an opportunity to spell out our name, which really in turn would spread awareness of our work in regenerative medicine. Like going out to public events, like a recurring question would be, what is CIRM? What does CIRM stand for? And really, that was a pain point that we would hear from, some of our stakeholders. We've also heard that recommendation from some of our team. So really by spelling out our name, it more clearly expresses who we are and says that we're more than just a stem cell agency, which was our previous tagline. And as you can see, this isn't really too much of a departure from our current design, and it has a very similar look and feel. So there have been some slight updates. As you can see in that color palette there on the screen, this is something that will also allow for more visual contrast and will make our content easier to read in our designs. But we really did want to keep those primary colors similar so that there's that familiarity with the brand that people already know. And then also we set some visual identity around our photography, and we felt that this really represents the communities throughout our state, also some of the innovative science that we fund. Moving forward, our photo style will aim to be more dynamic, diverse, and whenever possible, showcase the people in our programs. And really, this is all going to feed into the accessibility of our website that, Katie also mentioned, but also the creation of our materials that will really allow us to reach those communities that we're mentioning in this communications plan. And we've also done a lot of.
Before you move, can I have a question, please? First of all, as much as I love the fact that you added this, first of all, it looks great that you added a name. I'm going to say that a lot of people would still not know what regenerative medicine is. But second of all, I wonder if you couldn't put in light italic underneath that title, a California taxpayer funded agency. I'd like to put that on the table for consideration. I don't know who has to approve that, et cetera, but it's telling Californians, you guys made this possible. So that's a suggestion.
Definitely look at how we can incorporate some of that language, whether or not, it's able to be incorporated into the actual logo, because it is kind of small, but whether or not we could just incorporate that in a lot of our communications moving forward. The idea is to really be accessible and to make sure people know who we are. And so having language like that is going to be important.
Maria, Vito, do you know if there's any kind of process we have to go through to maybe add something like that?
Isabel, do you mean from a state level or internally?
Yeah, whichever, both externally and internally.
I don't think externally there needs to be a process, but I would ask Vito if he's aware of one.
I'm not aware. I'm sorry, Maria. Go ahead. I'm not. I don't think there is any prescription against it. It seems to me it's an editorial addition, and it would be allowed. I actually like it.
Mm-hmm. And then I think it's just a conversation internally that we would have, and then come back, Isabel, and talk to you about it as well.
Yeah, well, and whether or not there's protocol or going to the board and so on, and having a discussion around it. But it suddenly struck me that the more we can remind our taxpayers and people in California, we make this happen. So they make this happen, right? Okay, thank you.
There might be precedent for that, Isabel, in other agencies like Water and Power might have a little editorial, the agency that preserves drinking water or Fish and Wildlife or Parks and Rec or the Veterans Agency.
Okay, great. Continue.
Oh, has her hand raised?
Isabel, it's Chris. May I ask a question, please?
Yeah.
I'm thinking about your comments related to disability accommodation, and I'm thinking about the words California Institute of Regenerative Medicine and whether or not there's any issues with red-green color blindness and people being able to read those words. Because to me on my screen, that's either a reddish color or an orangish color.
I think that was the part of the redraw, correct? The rethink on this was the color?
Yeah, well, the two primary colors are the same. So we have the blue and the orange. We updated the 3 secondary colors because there are contrasting requirements in terms of, accessibility. We have a way to check the contrasting requirements. We did soften it just a little bit, again, to help with that contrasting. But, we can definitely play with, the contrasting models to make sure that, what we are presenting is ADA accessible.
Yeah, and one other note to add too is that typically with some of the deliverables, we would get different colors as well. So you would get, for example, like an all white that could be against a dark blue background. You can get an all black version. So those are things that could also be delivered, and those can be alternated depending on the design. So that's something that we would definitely take into account for particular communities as we're creating specific collateral and content for them, is definitely something that we'll consider.
Great, thank you. I just want to remind the board, I actually can't see you from the way we're configured here. So maybe Maria, you can call folk from if you see a hand up and I don't see it.
Sure, would love to.
Great, thank you. Go ahead.
Anything else? We're good?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, next slide.
Thank you for that. So also really wanted to recognize that we've done a lot of work to grow engagement in our email marketing. So we did want to share with you just, some of the metrics that we've seen over the past few months and the past year. Also looking at some of the metrics over previous years as well. So we did put some of the averages on there, and because CIRM doesn't quite fit into one specific industry for email marketing, we're not quite just a nonprofit. We're not an education organization. So we really took the averages across all of the industry to compare some of our metrics. And really, as you can see through some of these charts, our email engagement has really been improving. So our click-through rates on our open rates have improved significantly. And we really feel that this is a result of optimizing our subject lines, also our distribution times, and really overall the content design. We've been getting a lot of really great feedback there. But we really do recognize that email marketing presents a lot of opportunities to reach communities and share that engaging content. So we are really looking to even further clean that up and segment our email lists. And really what this would lead to is even more engagement as we can really start to tailor some of those updates, some of those stories and that content so that we make sure that it's relevant to the communities that we're trying to reach.
So hang on, sorry, playing with this excuse me, I'm playing with my picture. That reminded me, Esteban, and I think that's cool, but when we talk about diverse communities, are you actually investigating different ways in which these communities do social media, and you will at least try to identify a number of those to be able to message to them? And in this case, I'm thinking of like a WhatsApp, which is very popular with Latino and our low income and our Spanish speaking. So take a try and send some things out that way. That's, that kind of diverse and, much more profuse dissemination.
Yeah, absolutely. I think really in terms of social media, there are lots of things that you can do, by reaching their communities. If you're doing an advertisement as an example, you can of course, aim to reach some specific communities, whether it's geographical or by interest. I think in terms of email specifically, one example of a tactic that we've explored is, as we're going out into a particular community, we can create an email sign up. And those are things that you can tag on what we use a program called MailChimp. You're able to tag them as, maybe a community event in the Palm Desert as an example, and they're interested in this type of content. So you are able to actually, segment the list by their interests so that, maybe you want to send out an email around clinical trial participation or a very particular subject. That's really what we mean when we're talking about segmenting our list. And that's just one opportunity. There are so many other things that we can really explore there, but those definitely are things that we're taking into consideration.
Anna Christine, I apologize. I didn't actually ask you because this is also about social media and diverse social media. So if you have any thoughts, but I also want to say to our committee team members here, if you have a site or an idea for populations that you want to see served, by all means, I say send them to Esteban and Christina, so that they can put them into that list where they might be sending, and you might describe what it is you think that would be of interest, like Parkinson's specifically, and who are those groups around that issue, or Alzheimer's, or whatever those special interests are. But I really do think we need to diversify our outreach list.
Yes, Isabel, and Aditi is going to talk about some of the proposed outreach campaigns, which
okay.
very excited about.
Great.
Our proposed tactics, so we'll definitely get into that.
Sorry if I get ahead of you guys, but I'm in the moment. So
Very good. Okay. Thank you, Katie and Esteban, for that really nice overview of the phase one. That's pretty much, what has captured our attention the last few months. And so getting into the next phase, which I provided that kind of high level overview coming into Q3 and Q4, again, we're really starting to build on the work from the past couple of months, okay? So what we did here is we really started to develop specific communication goals around our strategic pillars because we want to make sure that the work that we're doing here on the communications team is advancing the organizational initiatives. So we broke up we created 2 goals for each pillar. So under the first pillar of advancing world-class science, our first goal is to promote funding opportunities to broader California research communities. And some of the potential tactics we're really looking to achieve include taking a more integrated approach to publicizing funding announcements across our channels. That also includes through our revamped webpage, okay, as well as packaging FAQ toolkits and really enhancing the visibility of CIRM's review and funding cycle to support the applicant and reviewer pool. Our second goal is to elevate the public visibility of CIRM-funded science and CIRM-supported grantees. So there's a couple of tactics here that we're exploring, which includes working closely with a lot of the teams throughout CIRM to really highlight research projects, outcomes across channels. We do a great job of pushing out press releases, but we really want to make sure our content is accessible. And that may mean, presenting it in an infographic or using simple cartoons so the lay public can really understand the impact of the science we're funding. To further our reach, we're looking at developing a social media PR toolkit. And this is really going to be key to make it easier for those who receive our funding to acknowledge CIRM in their media channels. Okay, so that means packaging it all up, providing hashtags and logos and our social handles to make sure that it's easy for them to provide the proper attribution. Okay, next slide. Okay, so under the next strategic pillar of delivering real world solutions, we've also developed 2 comms goals to advance these initiatives. First, we really want to take a closer look at promoting CIRM's manufacturing network and our industry alliance program to encourage membership and partner growth. And that includes development of branding and talking points, as well as programmatic collateral as we gear up for the manufacturing symposium, as well as upcoming conferences. We also really want to support with that thought leadership. Again, that's key in making sure that we are positioning ourselves as a trusted authority. The second goal is to promote CIRM's Alpha Clinics, our community care centers of excellence, and our patient support program. That too includes enhancements in support to branding, messaging, the development even of a microsite for our Alpha Clinics. And that's just sort of like a little tiny mini website for which all the Alpha Clinics could have a presence, okay? And an exciting initiative I'd like to preview is that we're looking to launch a patient access newsletter toward the end of the year. And really, basically we go out to all of these wonderful community events. People email us, they call us, and we really need to maintain consistent communication with patients and people from the communities, especially communities that are ready for messages of access. So we really need to communicate with them. And this publication is going to serve that purpose. And then lastly, one of the big strategies we're looking to implement in this current year is to really elevate our Alpha Clinic Symposium. Again, supporting with branding, messaging. We really feel as a communications team, it's a unique opportunity for us to bring together researchers in the communities, and we really want to develop strategies around publicizing it so that we can have much more greater reach. And next slide. Okay. And then our last pillar under this upcoming phase is really all about providing opportunity for all. And so Isabel, this kind of gets into some of the things you're, mentioning, but we're really looking to launch multilingual campaigns to spread awareness of clinical trial access, participation, as well as just what are stem cell treatments, right? So we're looking at the development of flyers and toolkits, one-pagers, and we really want to collaborate and partner with a lot of the community educators to develop that content. We're hoping in the future we could develop a community content advisory panel from which different members from the community can participate. And the last goal is to support promotional efforts to showcase CIRM educational and training programs. And so some of the potential tactics we're exploring include obviously support with messaging and integrated storytelling. We also really want to provide that branding support for upcoming conferences. And there's an initiative throughout CIRM to develop an education infrastructure network portal. And we're working very closely with teams to develop that branding and helping really to support with the content. So these are very exciting initiatives, and we're very excited to work closely with teams throughout CIRM to roll them out over this coming year.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have a quick question.
Yes.
A lot of these programs involve close collaboration with grantees, program directors internally, all of that. So I don't, what's this, how, will you guys roll that out internally, work with the team internally and try to, okay.
It's always gonna be a process of collaboration.
Okay, great. And then I had another question and it backs up a little, so sorry, I was just sort of processing it. When we talk about specific patient outreach or answering patient questions, I feel like the patient support services program, one of the things that originally had been envisioned, like, how we have the phone number and we would get the calls and we still get them from people looking for clinical trials and things like that, that all of that would be redirected to the patient support services program when they're up and running and that they can answer those questions. So we would, I assume, work with them.
Exactly.
Whomever the grantee ends up being, work with them to help them understand who CIRM is and what we do.
Provide the framework.
Yes, and then, but they would have to work with the sponsors directly to get all the information from the clinical, that relate to clinical trials and things like that. That's, okay, great, thank you.
Exactly.
Just want to
And again, we want to make sure that there's cohesion,
Yes.
right? And so our role would be to provide the framework, to provide the additional support, provide the branding language that really needs to be integrated so we're not working in silos.
Great, okay, thank you.
All right.
Anybody else? I'm going to have a process question later, Corinne. I'll let you keep going.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay, so as we roll out these campaigns, it's really important to think about how we're going to measure success. And so what we call in communications, we look at key performance indicators or KPIs for short. And really, it's going to depend how we're going to measure KPIs based on these various initiatives. It's really going to depend on the campaign, the audience, the stakeholder, and just what we're trying to achieve overall. And so as we're starting to roll some of these initiatives out, we're really going to determine the best KPI to measure success. And I wanted to provide a high-level overview of what some of those KPIs could be. So, maybe we want to measure social media impact, and that could include looking at likes and shares. At certain events, maybe we want to look at marketing touch points. That could include email open rates. At community engagement events, we may look at, the attendance at events. We can also look at website traffic and digital engagement metrics. So that includes, impressions, reach, blog visits. So again, every campaign is going to have a different KPI, and we will determine the best KPI, which will serve as a baseline from which we'll measure future performance. And so with that, I'm going to pause to see if there's any questions. We're good. Okay. So I'm going to hand it over to Aditi, who is going to provide some of the updated outreach goals that were part of the communications plan as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Corinne. So as you can see on this slide, we've identified 3 outreach goals, and I'll go through them in a little bit more detail. So the first goal is to enhance awareness and understanding. So here we're really looking to increase awareness and understanding of CIRM's mission and impact beyond the scientific and STEM communities. I think in the past, and of course I've only been here for 4 months, but learning about the history of CIRM, I think we've done a really good job of reaching scientific and other communities that know about STEM and know about STEM subjects. But we really want to grow that foundation of understanding about CIRM and CIRM's mission and impact. So we are looking to implement targeted outreach initiatives to address the general lack of awareness of cell and gene therapies and regenerative medicine among Californians. So the second goal is to strengthen collaborative partnerships. So here we really want to continue to build and strengthen the collaborative partnerships with community-based organizations to establish meaningful connections within the communities that we're working in, especially diverse communities. And then the third goal is to increase geographically focused outreach. So here we're really looking to focus on outreach in historically underserved and underrepresented regions of California, where the community care centers of excellence can be implemented. And we also want to develop and maintain relationships with community leaders, trusted messengers to serve as conduits for effective communication and outreach in the different geographic areas that we're looking to serve. Next slide, please. So in order to do this, we really are looking to propose 3 outreach campaigns, 3 large-scale outreach campaigns. The first one of which is sickle cell disease awareness. So we really want to build off of the recent FDA approval of sickle cell disease treatments and use this as an opportunity to focus on and spread awareness about sickle cell disease, as well as CIRM's impact with research that we're funding to create treatments, to do more research and discovery about sickle cell disease. So the main goal and purpose is to highlight this rare condition that disproportionately affects Black and Brown communities. And this really aligns with the DEI goals of CIRM, and we're going to utilize upcoming community events such as the Black Joy Parade, which is coming up in Oakland in February, to launch this campaign and emphasize CIRM's commitment to DEI and advancing research in sickle cell disease. Sorry.
Isabel has
her hand raised. Oh, yeah.
Isabel? You're on mute.
Sorry, my technology's not being cooperative. I'm wondering, I think that's you, Christine. I was actually thinking about this story because I'm here reading it, reading it in the Post not too many days ago. Have you actually, as a result, turned and responded to Carolyn Johnson, Carolyn Johnson, who wrote the article, and tell her, create linkage with her so that she comes and looks at CIRM and the work it's doing, and the fact that we were driving stem cell and sickle cell research long ago, and we've come up with some great, care and so on and so forth. I just think it's good, even while we're trying to inform California, that we can also reach further than that, as some of the leaders in many of these, in this advanced science. But to me, that's that be nimble and quick and respond to articles that happen. And in fact, I guess I'll take this moment to reference back to the big, huge article on SCID, the bubble baby, and it was in the Post about 2 weeks ago. And I looked through the whole article. I was trying to find CIRM mentioned because it was UCSF, and then it was UCLA, and then they talked about the money that was invested, and now the technology or the findings would not be used because industry was not interested in, et cetera, et cetera. We've seen it in California papers, but it ended up in the Washington Post. And I wondered if we took a moment to, one, look at who the researchers were and say to them, did you mention CIRM was your funder? And two, call the reporter and say, hey, we funded those projects. Be glad to have an interview with you and let you know what we're thinking, what we're doing. That's nimble and quick, and that's responding to the daily ways in which we communicate. And then if you get opportunities, you take that article and you say out there in the social media, look what we actually did. This was funded by, you know, and it's in the Washington Post. And I just think you have to take advantage of these opportunities that where people can see what we're helping support, the changes our investments is helping make in the lives of humans. And so that's just an idea, but I would like to see it done as part of social media outreach, as well as things that you can do, Esteban, on the website.
Yeah, I'd like to have Christina address that because there was some of that connection that we've done. So
Yeah, we
Christina?
completely agree with you, Isabel. We did actually reshare that story on our social channels and kind of said, hey, look at what we funded. But we did, and that's a great point, and maybe something we can start doing, you know, in the future is connecting with the reporters. We did tag when they're available on whatever social channel. We did tag a reporter more recently on Twitter, thanking her for her story, and then kind of also reiterating that we funded the research. I think it was for sickle cell. We're funding research for sickle cell therapy, so.
Yeah, and in addition to that, Isabel, that is something that we have done in the past. You know, if like there was actually a sickle cell article that featured one of our patients. This was maybe over a year ago, but that's something where we reached out, introduced ourselves. You know, they may not be familiar, but really just introducing ourselves as an expert in this industry should they seek opinions or quotes in the future. And that really plays into some of the thought leadership goals that we've got moving forward. And then another thing that we're also doing is we are looking to build a media database that really does highlight and that really calls out some of those reporters so that in the future, you know, should we have some of those story ideas or if we have any pitches or really just want to, again, introduce ourselves and keep our name front and center, that is really going to streamline that process. And that's just also part of that relationship building and building our collaboration partners that Corinne mentioned earlier as well. So that's something that we do want to make a regular thing and have that be part of our strategies.
Yeah, and I also add, Isabel, that we do reach out to reporters. We, again, follow up, make sure that we're introducing ourselves, making sure we're front and center for when, you know, they do want to interview experts. And really, it's all about collaborating with our partners. We do a really good job of making sure that we've developed communication collaboration with media partners so that when these stories do come up, you know, they do mention CIRM so that we can have a much more robust media outreach. And we do get a lot of placements that way. And so that was part of the phase one, sort of developing that network of media teams, communication teams, because we're all working for a lot of the same goals. And so making sure that we have that connection is going to be really important so that when, you know, they have an opportunity come up in the media that they think of us, we connect with reporters and so on. And also, the last thing I will mention one more time is we are actually developing a media statement for the sickle cell disease that should be going out shortly. So
yeah. Okay, so two things I may have heard, but first of all, I think that rather than wait for the story to come, you should just put them on the mailing list for the regular, you know, links to the website as well as regular social media outputs, because you might actually trigger an idea for a story. So I wouldn't wait for them to finally do a story on something. The second thing I would suggest is that you actually point them to someone in California who's been engaged as a patient or as an organization, like the sickle cell organizations here in California, as spokespeople, people who can talk about that personal experience, just like that young man who was featured in that story. So I just think it's, he's a young man. I think it's really critical for us sort of not to wait but to constantly keep that churning, to let them know, send them stuff, see what we're doing. I know that by reading newspapers and stuff like that, I get ideas for stories. And so I just encourage you make that part of your strategy. Is anybody else, board member, have something to say? Because I really would love for you to chime in.
I do. Yeah. So first, I want to completely endorse everything Isabel has said. This has been an enduring problem for 20 years, since the agency's first steps towards the development of therapies. So it's really important. It's important to stay in front of the taxpayers, and we've just got to work harder at it and smarter at it. It's a hard nut to crack. The second point I was going to make is this a good place to deliver a scientific and medical message, which is that the technologies developed for treating sickle cell will contribute to therapies for other diseases or accelerate clinical trials for other diseases? Something about how these rare disorders accelerate therapies for common disorders or other rare disorders.
Well, Larry, I think that there you've just proposed a potential story. And I would love if you would sit down with them and give them the facts. So they
You
can,
bet.
right? I mean, this is what I'm asking the board with all of your expertise and with your external relationships to come with those ideas and those stories. I mean, first of all, we have a small team, they're doing great, but I think we see stories out there and love to have you bring them back to the media team.
Yes, for sure. And we would definitely welcome that information. If you have connections, ideas, we would definitely welcome it. And, these are proposed campaigns. And so would really love to hear your feedback. We have a slide where we have a couple of discussion questions, but again, feel free to chime in. We think this is really relevant, and it's a great way to, again, connect with communities with something that really affects them in their day-to-day lives and to make CIRM relevant. And so not only is it relevant in the news, but it's very relevant in various communities. So I'll hand it back to Aditi.
I just have a couple of things. One, in the past, so first of all, it's in the grantees' contracts that they have to mention us if they're interviewed, and that they have to put us in their press releases as CIRM as funders. When they're talking to media, that they need to disclose that CIRM money got them to where they're going, or where they've hit. And so sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Sometimes the reporter decides they don't want to put that in. So I understand there's a whole series of things that could happen where we would not be mentioned.
Yeah.
In the past, what we've done is we've reached out to the grantee, made sure they understood, did they talk to them, followed up with the reporter, tried to make them understand how important it is for that to be part of the story. In addition to that, I know that we've had very close relationships with a lot of our grantee institutions, media departments, where they did feel comfortable if they would call us and say, hey, listen, this story is gonna come out. This is what we've said. Do you have any follow-up? Do you need anything more? And I know Kevin managed that very closely. That was his experience, like that was his background. So he had all that. If that's expertise you think we need to consult or contract with, like having that sort of media relations, that's something, we should talk about. If you think that we just need some more time to get back in with all of the institutions, that's great as well. But I think that's just something we should talk about and see where we are with that. Okay.
And so we've definitely started to think through that. That was part of our phase one, was to make sure that we're developing those relationships. And a lot of times, a lot of institutions do come to us and say, hey, this is coming out in the media. They let us know. Sometimes, like you said, it doesn't make its way through to an actual story. But then another part of cleaning up our process is that PR social media kit, which is gonna be very instrumental.
Yes.
It's gonna make it a lot easier for people to, again, to properly attribute us, to provide our logos, our social media handles, all in one sort of package to, again, make it easy and make it very clear that here's how you attribute CIRM. And so if we hand it off to them, it's gonna make that sort of compliance piece a lot easier. And then in 2024, that's when I think we really need to invest more in our media relations strategy, and that's part of what's in the phase 3. That's really looking at the PR technology that we have. Right now we have meltwater. I think I would like to invest in something different.
Sure.
That's going to provide more capabilities, including the development of an online newsroom that has much more interactive media, includes like social media, has direct connections to reporters. So we're really gonna look at a lot of our technologies to assist in that process. So it's a lot of relationship building and cleaning up to then, once we get to the phase 3, really starting to make, investments in that area.
Great, thank you.
Anything else?
No other hands are up.
All right, next slide, please. So the second campaign we're proposing is a campaign to advance stem cell education for all. So the main goal really is to provide broad audience potential positive impact, like information related to the potential positive impact of stem cell research and therapy. So basically expanding who knows about CIRM, who knows about stem cell research and gene therapies, and to also dispel myths and promote a better understanding of the science behind stem cells. So we're planning to use a variety of communication channels, including social media, blogs, educational events, and really develop engaging and accessible materials for an expansive audience to engage with this material. Any questions? Okay, next slide. All right, and then the third campaign that we're proposing is combating stem cell tourism. So stem cell tourism is this field of growing number of clinics that have begun advertising unproven therapies at a great cost to patient and at a great profit to those specific clinics. So looking closer at those clinics, it's often revealed that no information about what type of stem cells they're used, what type of therapy they're providing is really given. It's just kind of like, hey, the stem cell therapy is offered, come do it. And so these are considered predatory actions, and these predatory clinics are also relying heavily on video testimonials from people soon after they get the stem cell injections. But again, little information is provided about how those patients fared long-term, whether they actually benefited, what, diseases they suffered from, what protocols were instilled. So we really want to educate the public on the dangers of this practice of stem cells tourism and debunking common myths about stem cells and about what it really takes to validate, stem cell treatments and therapies. So looking at engagement through social media, blogs, targeted education events to really share information and provide skills to the general public to how to vet these clinics and how to determine whether these stem cell therapies being offered are really valuable, valid, and will actually be supportive of them. All right. And so here, as Corinne mentioned earlier, I've been working really hard to develop a community outreach calendar. So this is a pretty expansive calendar to give an idea of where CIRM might be able to be present. So it's not necessarily an end-all be-all, we must be at these events, but it's just a recommendation from my perspective of that expanding our reach and our presence and really also increasing brand recognition. So not simply looking at events and activities and communities that relate to STEM, but also looking at larger community events like Pride, like the Black Joy Parade, where specific communities are present, highlighted, uplifted, and show where CIRM can be supportive to them. So looking to launch the sickle cell disease campaign at the Black Joy Parade to show our commitment to the Black and Brown community to support diseases that affect them. So with this outreach calendar, a pretty expanded version of this calendar is available in the outreach plan. And we encourage board participation at any of these events that really strike your interest and you want to be involved. I would be happy to work with you on that. Next slide, please. And then finally, we have a few discussion questions that we'd love your responses to, your thoughts on. So I'm gonna read through the 3 questions and then I'll just open the floor so folks can chime in. So first, who might CIRM partner with to advance these proposed campaigns? Have any of the campaigns that we've proposed piqued interest for any of the board members to engage or participate in? And then what outcomes would you like to see out of these proposed campaigns? So I'll open the floor.
Any questions out there amongst the board members? George? David? Any comments?
Well, clearly good ideas. And I think those are the right questions, which I think is the most important thing at this point. Yeah, and I guess the only thing sort of missing from here, and it's missing from here for a good reason, are the projects and the products and the therapies and the categories that are not already part of what CIRM is funding or working on. It surprises me sometimes how little effort is going into some major diseases that seem to be appropriate for us. And it's not a question of CIRM not wanting to do it. It's a question of what are those applications or responses to applications come in. So I guess a little piece of this might be, how do you actually nucleate specific research in specific areas as opposed to just respond to the things that other people are starting.
Okay, David, that's a good thought to have and to think about, and maybe you can even name some things that you think are being missed. Please feel free to forward those as well. I'd ask George, so we'll go with George and then Larry.
Okay, thanks, Isabel. I was noting the campaign that you were proposing to go with for stem cell clinics that were questionable and of questionable benefit. And the third question you asked here seems particularly interesting for those clinics. What outcomes would you like to see out of a campaign there? How would you measure whether we're being successful in terms of educating the public about what are legitimate stem cell treatments and what are the places that might be less legitimate or places that they should be thinking much more carefully about? What outcomes would you look for?
Yeah, I think there's different ways we can go with this. And I mean, I think it depends on us as a team, like how we want to approach vetting like this process. But there's opportunities for pre-post tests, you know, if we're doing groups that we visit often, if we're looking at, you know, working with the alpha clinics and providing some of this education and information, looking at those patients and getting feedback from them and like what they understood, what they got out of it, and, you know, adjusting the materials accordingly to make sure that they're being received well. I don't know if anyone...
I'm happy to chime in. You know, again, this is a proposed campaign and we've been putting some thought behind these as some of the potential tactics, but just as an example, George, like one thing that we see often, you know, looking at our our public inbox, we, on a daily basis, we get questions from people asking, hey, I have this condition. What stem cell treatments are out there for me? Or, in some cases, they're even ready to do that. Like they'll reach out to us and say, hey, I'm considering this stem cell treatment. What information do you have for me? And even, this is somewhere where the patient support program could potentially come in, of course, but I think also providing some resources and, even thinking ahead, one option could be something like a landing page where we would provide all of the facts, all of the resources, maybe a one pager or a brochure that really spells out, information that is relevant to them and that they should know. So I think to answer your question, one outcome would be, how many downloads do we get? We can also host webinars in maybe communities that do seek out some of those treatments more often than maybe other communities, and look at participation for those webinars, like how many in attendance. So those are just some of the potential things that we would consider for that, even though they're not 100% realized. But just based on some of those questions that we see over and over again, I think some of those things would make sense. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It might be a combination of both qualitative and quantitative metrics that we look at to figure out if we're making impact and if we're having reach in the communities that we're looking to connect with.
And I think another point is also like looking at the clinical trials that we're funding and participation in those, right? Because this could also, a part of this could also be sharing the clinical trials that we have available and providing that information as an access point. And so then looking and saying, okay, now more patients are expressing interest in those clinical trials, trying to participate in those trials. So that could also be a outcome that we look at.
I think one thing to make sure, our Alpha Clinics network is, they're the partners to work with on this. And then again, I think the patient support, I don't know that we are necessarily when we get those incoming calls about, do I qualify for a trial? Do you have one? All of these things. It will be incumbent, I think, on this patient support program to field those calls, because they will have the ability to contact sponsors or to direct people to sponsors directly, or understand where we are in that trial history versus having it be something that we take on. I think that the important distinction to make is that what would we consider the criteria for involvement in a trial, and having that entire education, which we do have some resources on our website now. I completely agree that we could build them out more. I think that really does have to be done in collaboration with the Alpha Clinics, who can help you with language, with, how they, for us, it's, do they have an IND? Has it gone through, is it gonna go through the FDA? As the FDA said, this is a trial that is okay to participate in. That's not always the case, obviously, for trials that are outside of the United States, et cetera, et cetera. So I think working with the Alpha Clinics would be really important.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that reminds me, Maria, that obviously, while we love our communications team, they're not experts in a lot of this deep science. And so when someone calls, they're not necessarily the ones who should provide the answer. So maybe they should know and have a list of, when this kind of question comes in, who of our team really needs to take this on, or of our expanded groups that we work with, because I certainly couldn't answer all of those questions. Larry, your hand's up.
Yes. I'll remind us that a baby step was taken by the California legislature, which passed a bill requiring labeling of clinics delivering non-FDA approved trials or therapies. And so that prompts me to suggest that we look for a member of the legislature or members who want to partner on pushing this forward further. They can actually help do something about this problem, because the metric that we care about is either the number of people going to these clinics dropping or clinics closing.
Mm-hmm.
And Larry, there was an effort made in this regard several years back. Jeff Lomax was part of this as well. And so it would be nice to sort of go back to that and see if, we could take another run at it. So absolutely, thank you.
Yeah, that was a great
Totally agree, Maria.
Yeah. And there is another media opportunity to begin to build around this kind of a campaign and this kind of collaboration with our senators and our assembly members to kind of, it almost kind of puts pressure on them as well to produce, to get something done, but it
Great
also,
point. Great point.
Larry, it also spotlights them as doing something for the people of California to protect them. So I think that if we can go there as an agency and can do these proactive things, then I think that would be a fabulous thing to do.
It's a great point as
Yeah.
well. Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else from anybody, any team member besides that? Great discussion, folks. Anything else? Christine, Linda? Lauren? I'm gonna call you guys out. Elena?
No, it was a great discussion. Really, really is shaping up beautifully. This is Linda.
Oh, thanks, Linda. I'm sure the team appreciates that. I have only one other question because you actually triggered some of our our thoughts and our maybe even our concerns. So what actually, and maybe Vito, you know the answer, what exactly is the protocol for, you've now shared this with the communications team. You're going to share something with the full board. Is there a process in which this has to be approved before you can actually implement it? Who approves it? Or we are missing a president, and so, or a CEO, so there's no one to oversight that and give final permission. Have you checked with each of the teams that are involved in some of the stuff that you showed us? Sorry, my English as well. But given them an opportunity to weigh in on, well, this is really doable. This is going to be tougher. Yeah, we can help you with this. This is not up our alley. Just things like that, so that when you implement this, you know everybody's on board. So can you answer that, Vito?
There are a lot of questions in there, Isabel. I think some of them are directed to Corinne. First of all, Corinne, congratulations. It was a wonderful presentation, and your whole team really put a lot of effort into this, and it shows. I want to be hesitant because the full board this week will start a discussion on what they expect what they expect to instruct our new president and CEO in what he or she should be focused on, what the boundaries of that activity might be. And I think that there probably are some unknowns. And we don't want to put too many handcuffs on our new leader, our new president, CEO. And that person may want to revisit this at some point in the future. I just don't know.
We also don't want to put too many handcuffs on our great communications team. So, but we also want to make sure that everybody feels very comfortable with this plan, has given it a look-see and has weighed in on that, just so there's nobody who comes back later and says, well, they did this and I didn't say anything and we should have done, how that works. So I just think that it's critical for us to actually answer that question. Do or do they not, can they act autonomously and create a great plan and then go their merry way? Or does it have to have some process for approval, et cetera, and buy-in, et cetera?
Isabel, I think the key question is between now and when the new CEO comes on board, because this would be in the purview of the new CEO, as head of the organization. But between now and the time a new CEO is hired, is this something that would be in the purview of the interim CEO to weigh in on and help guide through? I would imagine that, yes, it would be something that person would help, the team integrate and make sure that, everyone was brought into the fold. But I don't know that answer, and I don't know how the board's gonna feel about what activities the interim CEO should and should not take on. So I think we'll know more about that on Thursday.
Yeah, and
So-
I would say, just as a communication team, we're definitely committed to being collaborative and working with teams throughout CIRM to make sure we have appropriate buy-in and we're working closely with teams. A lot of those were potential tactics. We want to make sure that we're working very closely with teams on implementation, messaging, et cetera. And we did do a lot of work prior to this and really making sure that we engage various teams to provide their opportunity to provide what their priorities are. So we'll continue in that direction, as well as when we share these proposed campaigns, just even having your feedback on the subcommittee was very important. And we can continue to provide these updates along the way and really are committed to being collaborative to make sure that these initiatives are really well done.
So let me proceed with Scott and or Raphael, who I saw were here. Are there any constraints that you see in this plan that they should be aware of before moving ahead? Any regulatory issues, any legal issues or anything? I mean, I just want our team to be protected and for us to be doing everything that is wonderful and acceptable.
This is Scott. I'll go first. Excuse me, Raphael.
Sure.
I don't see anything. Thank you for asking from a regulatory standpoint. I note that, you know, there's actually some components of our IP regulations that Maria spoke of earlier that implicates at times our obligations of our awardees and grantees on working with us when they're working with the media and when they're preparing media exchanges. You know, our reach isn't quite as extensive when it comes to the circumstance of the media just writing on their own or covering a story on their own if there isn't that initial cooperation or outreach to our awardees. You know, it's really our relationship with our awardees as that we can regulate. So from that perspective, I think we've done what we can in terms of setting our expectations, and I think you've heard that there's a lot of work that we do to try to apprise our awardees of what those expectations are, because the award gets signed and funded one year, and it's sometime down the road when these obligations and expectations are implicated. So it's also outreach on our part to make sure that they're aware of our expectations.
Right. But that's on their part and not on our communications teams, that there's anything prohibited within that which they shared with us today.
That's
So
right.
that's and Raphael, just in case you want to pipe in.
I've got nothing else to add. I concur with Scott's interpretation there, Isabel. Gracias.
So that's good to know. And Maria, I'll take some direction from you. Do we need any more process, or do we need to still determine who actually does someone have to approve this plan, and who might that be?
I think the approval would be internal. So again, working through that process internally. So I guess we'll need to talk about that at the board on Thursday about the interim CEO, because I don't think this is something that should wait necessarily. So I think that would be something that we would want to give the interim CEO responsibility over.
Okay, I agree. Go ahead.
I like Maria's answer. This is a concept plan, and we should probably treat it like every other concept plan. It's developed internally and discussed at the board, and then Maria, I think you're right on.
I have no problem with that. I just want to make sure that we all feel comfortable with it going through process and protocol, et cetera, that everybody's weighed in, and then somebody suddenly decides, why did you do that? How could you do that? Oh, why? So anyway, anything else, Corinne, from your team, or we've come more or less to the end? So I might ask for any public comment if.
Just thank you again for your time and attention today, and we look forward, obviously, to sharing more of our work in the upcoming year and the next upcoming meeting.
So before we say sayonara, is there anybody in the public standing by that might want to make a comment?
There are no hands raised for public comment.
Okay, very good. All right, well, Maria, do you have any last words for the team as we head into the holiday? Oh, no, we got a meeting. We got a meeting on Friday. Full team.
See you in an hour.
Something I will highlight is we are receiving very high volumes of applications for all of our programs. So we may not need as much communication outreach in that regard. I don't know, it sort of remains to be seen. But we are receiving just incredibly high levels of applications, which is wonderful, but also probably very time consuming for our teams. So thank you again for everything.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I want to thank the board for joining us. Thank you all. And thank you, Maria, for your help. Thank you, media team, and all the rest of the folks from CIRM. I really appreciate your participation, your attendance, and your attention. So I bid you have a lovely evening. Have a lovely evening, and we'll see you again on Thursday, right?
Thursday.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.